years have passed since the events of Babidi, and Majin Buu was never released. During those 4 years, the Saiyans, other than Pishi and kinda Trunks, grew massively. For starters, all the pure Red Saiyans have unlocked Super Saiyan 3, which is made easier due to them having their tails still. Gohan wants to follow down his dad's path, however Trunks is starting to slowly lose to his human nature, and have had his potential unlocked by the Elder Kai, just like Pishi. This puts him slightly above the adults actually, but he loses due to skill. CPUs have all gotten weaker, however. As per normal, Neptune and Vert are lazy, while Blanc has been studying some strange crystals filled with energy along with Blanc. However, she's been noticeably getting sick lately. Quite strange, as they've never been sick before. Noir used to work pretty hard, however, while being very successful as a businesswoman running a whole subdivision of Capsule Corp on her own, she's starting to slacken her training too. After all the rest of the CPU do, she deserves a break. Iris Heart had also finally deformed back to Plutia, and everyone prefers that, so they just let her be lazy. They're not going to try to make her transform. Pishi had been training enough to satisfy her Saiyan half. However, if she's gotten any stronger, it's hardly noticeable. Bulma's birthday party comes up, and everyone's actually there this time. Goku's a bit smarter and more mature in this series, so he does show up on time. But while everyone's having a good time, Beerus shows up. Vegeta and Nappa are nearly shitting their pants. Raditz has heard stories, but he doesn't really know how to feel, and everyone else is confused on why Vegeta is terrifying of a purple cat. Beerus introduces himself and says he's looking for a Super Saiyan God. Goku explains that they don't know what that is, but they can cycle through their forms. Beerus agrees to a little bit of exercise. Goku goes Super Saiyan, but Beerus isn't impressed. And then Goku goes Super Saiyan 2, and while being noticeably more powerful, Beerus is still less than happy. Finally, Goku goes Super Saiyan 3, and Beerus is finally impressed. Goku is about as strong as he can be, as strong as he was in canon, so yeah, as strong as he can be. And then he gets clapped. Since Beerus isn't pissed off though, Goku gets to live, and well, Beerus is more interested in the CPU and, to an extension, Trunks. So Goku is just kind of like a side project for him right now. The CPUs have a godly aura to them. Not like him, but maybe a lesser god. And Pishi is apparently Goku's son, even though she looks nothing like either of her parents. Trunks also has a slight bit of godliness to him, likely being his ultimate form. And Pishi decides, or agrees, to show off her ultimate form to Beerus. But while she is notably stronger than Goku, not enough to impress Beerus. Beerus came for a Super Saiyan God, but got nothing he wanted. So he's gonna blow up the planet. But before he can, Neptune suggests to use the Deus Ex Machina, aka the Dragon Balls. The story of 5 pure-hearted Saiyans was told, and so naturally they had more than enough to make a Super Saiyan God, and the choice was obvious. Pick Pishi, she's the strongest. So that's what Beerus thought, but Pishi didn't think this was such a good idea. And in case you forgot, Pishi was the first to unlock HDD. And she did this before anyone knew what Super Saiyans were, aside from Vegeta, but he'd only heard stories. Since HDD is equal to Super Saiyan 2, and she had no reason to learn either Super Saiyan levels, she just never learned it. She had also gotten the ultimate form before her father learned Super Saiyan 3. So, even if she didn't get her ultimate form, or, but there's basically no reason for her to get Super Saiyan. Because Super Saiyan 3 is weaker than the ultimate form. HED is equal to Super Saiyan 2. Those forms are literally just more strenuous power-ups than the ones she already has. So, there was no reason to do so. Plus, HDD made her an adult when she was a kid. So, it was a more combat-capable form anyways. There's just no reason to learn. They decided to try it anyways. And so Goku, Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa, as well as Gohan, put their energy into Pishi. At first, everything is fine. glowing a bright red color and powering up, but then she feels something weird trigger inside it. A familiar weird, but weird nonetheless. She struggles to hold in her dramatically increasing power, before she explodes with a bright pillar of light filling the air, with a red glow inside. Pishi, instead of turning to a Super Saiyan God, turned HDD, and then Super Saiyan God on top of that. This combines the forms nearly seamlessly, creating what is essentially her version of Super Saiyan Blue. Beyond that, actually, since HDD is equal to Super Saiyan 2 in power. Not to mention, in this form, since her body itself transformed, she has no control issue. Well, she has one. The only issue is that this form is stacked. It's like an ascension to HDD. And HDD messes with her personality. So, before the fight officially starts, Pishi runs up yelling a big bang and sent Beerus into the atmosphere with an uppercut while he was talking. So, yeah, you can imagine that pissed Beerus off. Regardless, though, Beerus is plenty happy. She's over 100 times stronger than Goku at bare minimum. Thus, Beerus had a way better fight than in canon. And the universe wasn't threatening to be destroyed. So, we're all good. Unfortunately, though, as I've mentioned a couple times before, we're in the manga version of this timeline. I think I mentioned it a couple times already. So, Pishi does not absorb the Super Saiyan God power into her base. That's something she'd have to train. Out in the depths of space, however, there's a large block of ice. It slowly cracks open before a figure appears from it. It's cooling. His men approach him, wondering if he recovered well. A long time ago, Cooler was hit by a species' secret technique, and since his guard was down, he suffered fatal damage. He had to go into a deep hibernation to properly heal due to the lack of technology at the time. He asked the armored squadron to take him into space. No doubt their ship is out of date, and their database even more. They land on a Frieza planet, and learn that the planet is nearly lost to the local forces. Frieza and King Cold have been killed, and Cooler was lost to time, so there was no one to properly lead their forces. Cooler sees what happens with their limited data. Some random women killed his brother and father. Oh, and apparently there were some stupid monkeys too. Cooler thinks to himself, 1 year. All he needs is to train for 1 year to upgrade his ship, fully recover, and train to be strong enough to beat some stupid women and their stupid monkeys too. After all, what's the worst that would happen? They unlock another new transformation right after the previous arc? Surely not. After the events of Beerus, everyone continues training, given that they didn't stand a chance against Beerus. Gohan in particular has been questioning his potential. Pishi was just so much further than he was, so he wanted her power, being his older sister. After all, he looked up to her. However, when Gohan asked about Super Saiyan God, Pishi explained that her form wasn't Super Saiyan. She could tell because she felt her power increase further past HDD, and a normal Saiyan wouldn't have been able to do that. Which makes Gohan further ponder. He could just do the ritual too, but he doesn't want to. He's not quite Vegeta or his dad, but he still has his pride as a Saiyan. So Gohan actually goes to Raditz and asks to learn more about Saiyan. And while Gohan doesn't feel proud for their people's nature, does find it interesting. His tail. It allows them to turn to great apes, which is something Gohan actually had no idea about. Gohan vaguely recalls the information being told to him before, but him and Goku really weren't exposed to the transformation. Pishi and Gohan have never transformed to a great ape, period. Although Pishi has no tail, so I mean, it's not like she'd have the chance to do it regardless. Gohan would unlock Super Saiyan 3 like the full-blood Saiyans, but Gohan would ponder on these thoughts, his tail, and Pishi's newfound strength. Perhaps with his knowledge, he could grow stronger, and while experimenting, he'd come to an interesting conclusion. He asked about Saiyan tails to the Supreme Kai and Elder Kai while training, and asked if Kabito's healing ability could regrow it. And then, he tells them to chop off his tail. Everyone's kinda confused why he'd do that. Nappa and Raditz are outraged. Gohan doesn't care. He's told them to do it. After having his tail removed, Gohan had trouble controlling his power for a bit, which Goku recalls having the same trouble when he was a kid. Within a few days, Gohan was able to go Super Saiyan 2 again. However, as he tries to go Super Saiyan 3, he realizes it's a lot harder to do than before. And when he does transform, the form is so much more strenuous that he can only hold it for 30 seconds in a sparring match with Raditz. By the end of the week, he goes through a very painful process of regrowing his tail, where he would almost immediately feel the difference and start coming to his own conclusions. But wait, training with Raditz and Nappa, where's Goku and Vegeta? Well, those two were on Beerus' planet. Those two realized that base to base, Goku and Vegeta were even, and just barely behind Pishi in terms of base form at least. While Nappa isn't a significant amount behind those two, it's noticeable, and the same can be said with Raditz to Nappa. And 2 Saiyans were enough as it is, they weren't going to have 5. Pishi wasn't really interested in the training, she'd just wait for her dad to get back and teach her then. She's kinda lazy after all, like her mother. This means that only the CPU, Piccolo, and the humans were left on Earth, however, as the other Saiyans were on the Supreme Kai's planet. We cut to Bulma and Blanc. Blanc, as per usual in these expeditions, felt like shit, but she put it off. She just feels weak when around this ore, and she's always just fine when she gets home the next day after a nice sleep. Didn't quite understand it. As Capital Corp's employees were mining the ore, though, a big dinosaur appeared, likely that T-Rex thing you often see in Z. That's when Blanc did finally get off her ass. Unfortunately for the dinosaur, Blanc breaks some of its teeth out with a single kick, and it whimpers back into force. All the day's work, she supposed. As they were collecting crystals, Blanc takes a seat once again. She had a headache, and she's starting to feel tired. But before she could take a nap or rest, one of the scientists says the crystals are acting weird now that they started piling them up. This confuses Bulma and Blanc, and they go check it out. As they do, the crystals react violently and explode. Bulma looks down, shocked and shaken. Blanc had quickly grabbed Bulma and flown out of the way of the explosion, but before she could make it back to the ground to drop her off, everyone had already been killed. There's large smoke, and her senses were overwhelmed by something inside of it. Aside of the smoke were a pair of Dragon Balls and a person. Blanc's eyes widen upon seeing that the person looked like her own HDD form, only distorted. For visual purposes, we're using an inverted white heart, but if I had the choice, I'd make more specific changes, similar to Uzume and Kurame in V2. Blanc puts Bulma down and tells her to go home, because Blanc was now pissed off, and she starts approaching the Faker, while Bulma leaves on a jet. She tries to ask what the hell the Faker is, but there's no words exchanged. The Faker rushes Blanc and quickly sends her flying. Two get into a clash, throwing punches and kicks, but Blanc is overwhelmed swiftly. She jumps out of the way of an energy blast and throws down one of her own, but after the large explosion, there was no damage. Blanc gets annoyed and uses... As Blanc used the legendary technique, she learned that it did no damage. She really didn't get that 1 out of 100% chance to do damage. Big sad. Blanc was huffing and puffing. She was just so goddamn tired, and she didn't understand why. She'd barely been fighting, but she felt like she's been fighting for hours. She then realizes that if she wants to beat this opponent, she's going to have to transform. So she lets out a yell and begins glowing brightly before... Nothing happens. She looks at her hands in shock, but then gets launched into the ground by a strong right hook from the Faker. Blanc slowly gets up, and before she can launch another attack, Noir kicks the imposter away. Noir makes fun at Blanc for getting her ass kicked by a negative recolor of herself. But Blanc then tells Noir to shut the fuck up. Blanc then gets a distance away to let Noir fight, where she quickly transforms into Blackheart to just get it over with. She had business to attend to after all. Blackheart actually starts beating the shit out of fake Whiteheart. Blackheart then charges a Kamehameha after sending the Faker flying and launches it off. A technique she picked up from Goku, obviously, and hits the enemy dead on. However, as the smoke dissipates, the Faker is still there and perfectly fine. The Faker would spit out some blood and then rush Blackheart after the two caught their breath. This time, the Faker was actually able to defend herself, albeit barely. The two then disappear, and some clashes appear in the air, before Blackheart gets hit with a strong right hook. That was a lucky shot. The two begin to clash again, for about 5 minutes in total, and Blackheart realizes something is wrong. She's winded, and when she got here, she was smacking the imposter around. Not to mention, before, she seemed to suddenly be able to keep up with Blackheart, and then the tanker completely tanked her Kamehameha. The Faker then hit Blackheart in the face and is sent flying through some boulders. Blackheart sat up and also spat out some blood. It was her time this time. Even though she just blasted that Faker to somehow knocking Blackheart around, she didn't understand what the hell was going on. Bert appears and asks what's going on. Blackheart told her to can't and that she could handle it. However, after a very quick scuffle with the Faker, Blackheart couldn't handle it. Bert turns into Greenheart and the two jump the Faker. But even working together, they struggle. As Blackheart huffs, Blanc stares up at them. Curious, Blanc would fly up to the two and tell them that somehow they're having their energy drained. It would explain why the Faker negged the Kamehameha, and as they're having this conversation, Neptune shows up as Purple Heart, and the group, would start jumping negative White Heart. However, just like with Blanc and Blackheart, every clash the enemy actually grows stronger. Eventually though, as negative White Heart goes for a killing blow against Green Heart, she gets drop-kicked by Peachy. Way to go to the basically main character of the series. This was Peachy's first day off in over a month. No job, no homework, no training. She's gonna have a nice day out with her boyfriend. Purple Heart wasn't having that. But regardless, Peachy activated her ultimate form and started going to town. And it was brutal. The Faker wasn't even getting a single hit off. It was really bad. The CPU mentioned that thing can absorb energy. However, Peachy doesn't seem to notice, as, again, she's knocking this thing around. You have to remember the power gap between Peachy and the other CPU. Her base form is stronger, meaning her HDD would be stronger, but her ultimate form is higher than that of a Super Saiyan 3's, while HDD is only as strong as a Super Saiyan. The power gap is quite tremendous. After a little while, though, Peachy can feel what they're talking about, but she doesn't understand how they lost if they were only getting so much energy drained. Neptune tries to think of why Peachy would be so unaffected, but Noir comes to the realization herself. The thing absorbs CPU's energy, but when they go HDD, I guess you could say CPU energy skyrockets. Peachy is only a halfling, and she's not using a CPU form, so Peachy isn't having her energy drained nearly as fast as everyone else. And Blanc was near the crystals all day, so it's no wonder she would have been tired right away. Regardless though, Peachy's having trouble, or starts having trouble. The enemy has already absorbed a lot from the other CPU, and Peachy tries finishing her off with a large Kamehameha. Before everyone could tell her why this is a terrible idea, fake Whiteheart opens up her hands, Super 17 style, and just takes the attack head on. Peachy didn't know it could absorb Energy Blast after all. They kind of left that detail out. Peachy starts getting annoyed and huffs as she tries to power up further. She was just gonna bust out her new God form. However, as she starts to power up, her energy just stops. She seems confused and tries powering back up, but then it fizzles out again. Wham! She's sent flying to the ground. As Peachy gets up, she realizes she's been sent right next to the crystals, which had exploded, but now there are tiny bits of them all over the ground. She feels her body start turning to mush as her energy is drained much more rapidly, and she slowly starts crawling away, wiping the blood off her face. She didn't quite understand what was going on. She was perfectly fine one moment, and then the next, her energy just disappeared. As Whiteheart goes to throw an energy blast, Neptune remembers something. Neptune remembers that this isn't named Dragon Ball Super X Hyperdimension Peachy. This is named Dragon Ball Z X Hyperdimension Neptunia. Her name's in the what if. She can't let Peachy take her role as the main character. It's preposterous. She turns into HCD and kicks the Faker away. She then demands that everyone else gives them their energy. Peachy immediately does as she's told, and begrudgingly everyone else does as well. As Purple Heart receives their energy, she transforms again, powering up by a very large amount. Peachy then immediately picks up on the trace of God as Purple Heart turns into her next transformation. Inside this new form, negative Whiteheart can't seem to absorb next Purple's power, and with a single slash of her katana, the Faker is sliced in half and blown up dramatically. She then blasts the ground where the crystals were, causing a large explosion. However, it would appear that the Dragon Balls were unharmed. She then passes out immediately. Our story picks up from last time. After Neptune accessed the next form, they decided to look further into these red crystals. Apparently, they were all over the planet, but now Bulma, the CPU, realized that the crystals have some kind of connection, and that Capscorp will be destroying them. But ignoring that, the CPU has something more concerning in mind. Neptune got this new super special awesome transformation, and now everyone wants it, and thus everyone does the ritual again towards the other CPU. After the CPU power up and they try out their powers. However, they come to realize that Neptune cannot access the power she used before, just like Peachy can't access the power of her Saiyan Drive Divinity, or whatever we're calling it. And despite her stronger base form, Peachy's ultimate form still can't beat the CPU's next form. And just a quick side note, in the Discord server, it was brought to my attention that some people seem to have missed what I had previously stated. If it wasn't clear before, These forms are the CPU stand-ins for Super Saiyan God and Blue and etc. So Saiyan God Divinity is twice as strong as Blue, and next is equal to Super Saiyan Blue, the complete version. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the complete version. And neither of these forms can be accessed by the group willingly. In fact, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that before. The server seems to think that they could, and I don't know why they thought this, because there's literally no evidence of this whatsoever. I literally said Pishi could not access her new transformation in Part 2. Not to mention, none of the CPUs actively train, so I honestly have no idea why anyone thought Neptune could access her next form, or Pishi access Saiyan Drive Divinity, SDD. But no, they are unable to actively access the form. Join the Discord server. Okay, thanks. Back to the story. So after the other CPU learned that they were unable to access their new form either, they all began to train again with each other to unlock said form. Pishi, unfortunately, doesn't have enough time to train as much as they do. A job and college takes up enough time as it is. Oh, and in case you're wondering what Pishi's doing in college, I don't know. Let's say she's becoming a professional artist for funsies. One day, as everyone is training though, everyone senses a power level approaching the planet. A few of them, but one of them is massively larger than the other, and kind of feels familiar to some of the group. As the CPU, including Pishi and Gohan, and Piccolo, show up to the location of the enemy. Out of the ship comes Cooler's armored squadron, and then Cooler himself. Everyone would ask who he is, and he'd tell them his name is Cooler, Frieza's big brother. Remember, no one would recognize him because they never saw Frieza's final form, so he doesn't look like the rest of his family. That means we're avoiding the racism charges in this one, unlike the movie. Cooler explains that he doesn't care about his little brother or father, but a disgrace against his bloodline is still a disgrace. They must be taken care of. Pishi brags, smirking as she does something foolish. Pishi puts a thumb to herself and says, "Ha, handle us, please. I killed your father as a child. I'll pummel your lizard ass in the ground and blow you into the wind." Cooler would then stare, before firing a death beam through her shoulder. It was actually aimed at her heart, but she barely had time to dodge the attack, and yelled out in pain. Pishi would growl and power up into her ultimate form, before flying past the armored squadron and sending Cooler flying through his own ship with a right hook, and then flying after him. Gohan chases after the two, while the CPU and Piccolo deal with the armored squadron. Piccolo says he wants to go first. The others are a bit concerned, but Piccolo's last fight against 1718 was 12 years ago. Piccolo scoffs and tells them that he has not been slacking off, although it's clear he's fallen behind. He says he can take them though. Cooler's armored squadron are appalled, but decide to accept it. Piccolo grunts as he goes to fight the Cooler's armored squadron, and well, and they're taken care of basically the same way as they are in the dub, the movie. I mean, only Salzer is actually killed in this. So there you go, Piccolo fans. I gave your boy a dub. Now remember, Piccolo has not fused with Kami or Nail in this. So right now, if we are giving maximum wankage here, okay? Piccolo's second cell, his second form cell level. That's the most I can give him. I can't see him being any stronger whatsoever. Meanwhile, with Pishi, she's having a bit of trouble. She really can't use her arm anymore, and Cooler has a tail. But she's far stronger than Cooler currently, so she sends her flying into a mountain with a kick. Cooler would get himself out and compliment Pishi. He was impressed. However, this charade of weakness has gone on long enough. Pishi looks confused, and then Cooler begins to power up. Pishi's caught off guard by the sudden rush of power. You see, in this timeline, Cell never woke up, and Frieza never transformed. So, Cooler is actually the first opponent they're fighting who transforms. So, yeah, she's kind of appalled, you know, she's like, transforming? That's our thing. But unfortunately for Pishi, it's a Dragon Ball thing. Apologies. Pishi quickly takes a knee to the gut, and then gets her face slammed into the ground, collapsing the whole cliff there. Pishi lifts her hand to fire a blast into his face, but does no damage as she's slammed into the water, onto the ground inside the water. Pishi's eyes widen, before Cooler lets go of her face and begins to punch further down onto it. She lets out a gargled, bloodied yell, as he continues to hit her in the face under the water, slowly losing consciousness and drowning. As Cooler raises his fist to finish her off, he feels a rumble in the water before getting kicked in the face by a golden glow. Gohan, Super Saiyan 3, quickly grabs Pishi and flies out of the water. He tries CPR, where she eventually coughs up bloodied water and then passes back out. Gohan's golden Super Saiyan 3 aura sparks as he gets angry. It then vanishes and hits Cooler in the face again, and the two begin to clash. But Cooler quickly gains the upper hand, kicking the boy away. Gohan rolls and uses his aura to stop himself midair, before firing an uncharged Kamehameha from range. Cooler powers up and then flies through the blast just like the movie. Gohan is shocked, and then he is punched into the side of a mountain. A lot of mountains were hurt in the making of this what if. Gohan admits that he underestimated Cooler, and that he figured it could be easy to handle, just like how his older sister killed the rest of his family so easily. Cooler then drops the bombshell that he's only been using a third of his power, and that he knows Gohan's been holding back too. When Cooler insists on doing so, Gohan smirks and turns back to his base form, saying that if he wants it, he's got it. Gohan gets a serious expression, and his eyes flash gold before he starts yelling, releasing a bright golden explosion of energy as he powers up, pushing, the clouds and the water and the earth around him, flying everywhere. And when the light dissipates, Gohan has become a Super Saiyan 4. Cooler would make a comment saying how Gohan's become even more of a monkey, but then immediately regrets it as Gohan hits Cooler in the gut, followed up by a few more stronger punches. He would then send him into the ground with a short-range ki blast. As Gohan would land on the ground, he'd tell Cooler to leave. Cooler would be both shocked and offended, taking mercy from Gohan. The rest of the team would show up and tell Gohan to finish him off. Gohan doesn't get why though. Cooler didn't kill anybody. Piccolo explains to him that if he lets Cooler go, just come back stronger later, even stronger than before. Remember, this is Gohan's first villain. He wasn't involved with Majin Buu, not directly at least. And then he also wasn't involved with Beerus. Majin Buu wasn't there to piss off Beerus. So it was all good. So this is Gohan's first real battle. He doesn't understand the importance of killing your opponent before they get the upper hand or come back stronger. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends how you look at it, he learns the lesson very quickly, as Cooler hits Gohan in the back with a large ki blast and flies into the air while they're blinded. Cooler then starts charging a supernova, stating that he's the one who gets to decide who lives and dies. He was the strongest in the universe. Gohan would stare up calmly and charge up a Kamehameha. The blast easily goes through Cooler's own attack and sends him into the atmosphere, then space. The Kamehameha, assumingly, easily killing the much weaker Cooler. Gohan reverts to normal, and people have questions. What was that form? And what was that second form? How did he get so strong? Where did those clothes come from? And those answers? Super Saiyan 3. Super Saiyan 4. Training. And he doesn't know. Super Saiyan 4 has magic clothes powers. Gohan and Neptune take Pishi to Corns for a sensu beam, because, remember, Dende does not exist here on Earth. Meanwhile, on Supreme Kai's planet, Raditz and Nappa see what has happened through the magical orb and get triggered. How did he get this strong? How dare he unlock a new form without them? This is not fair! Goku and Vegeta also saw on Beerus' planet. They're fascinated by Super Saiyan 4, but it's not as strong as Super Saiyan Blue. As a new threat is about to affect the planet Earth, we'll see how this works in the next part of the Destroyer tournament. Sometime later, after Cooler appeared, Goku and Vegeta. That's what it says in my script. I'm gonna leave that in the video. Goku and Vegeta appeared and told everyone about the Tournament of Destroyers, and that they need a total of 5 fighters to fill their ranks. The starting roster was quite obvious. Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan were the strongest 3 as of this very moment, with Super Saiyan Blue and Super Saiyan 4. But who would the next contestant be? Taishi explains that she has college and a job, and that she just made the excuse that she got into an accident not too long ago to fight Cooler. How the hell was she supposed to pass school and keep her job if she kept being pulled out of both to fight? And while this was true, Vegeta then pointed out that she can just get a job at Cap Support, who can pay her more money, very biased bonus, makes her save 50% or more on car insurance, and the excuse to leave to fight and train. Which makes a lot of sense. It pays to have connections, doesn't it? The next choice was between the CPU's Raditz and Nappa. Raditz and Nappa could use Super Saiyan 3, making them stronger than the CPU. However, Neptune said that if they wanted to go into the time chamber, she could unlock her super special awesome form, which made the other CPUs argue that they would like to go instead, because they can also use the super special awesome form. However, this made Pluty Patootie very angry. So Mama, please step on me. This made Madame Goddess slam her foot down and told them all to sit the fuck down. She would be taking the pit slot, and everyone immediately felt bad for Universe 6. It was not going to be a pretty time. Spoiler alert. After that, everyone had 3 days to prepare. So Goku suggested the hyperbolic lion tamer. It should be noted that Vegeta, Taishi, and Plutia have not been there before. But Goku and technically Gohan have. Let me explain. You see, Goku trained with Neptune before the Android Saga, where Neptune learned HDD, if you recall. Gohan had gone in between the events of Cooler and Part 2, which happened off screen. I didn't explain that to you, but that's where Gohan learned Super Saiyan 4. That's why he looks like an adult. Which was done the GT method, by the way, because we are GT Super Saiyan 4 fans in this household. However, Gohan had been there before by technicality. Also remember that Neptune got pregnant with Gohan while they were in the time chamber. Now, for the sake of plot, I'm going to say that this doesn't count towards Gohan's time in the chamber, but you could make a technicality that Gohan can't go in there for a full second year because he would have spent a couple months pregnant. He wouldn't have been pregnant. He was inside Neptune for a couple months while she was pregnant with him in the time chamber. This is very hard to explain, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. With that, let's move on, shall we? The first day, Goku trains with Vegeta, using the rest of Goku's time. The second day, Taishi trains with Iris Heart, who she actually has no problem with, really. Remember that most of Taishi's childhood was spent with Iris Heart. So, yes, Mommy Iris Heart is actually canon. Anyway, Gohan trains with Vegeta, using both of their remaining years left. That would be the end of their 3 days of training. After this, though, Kami decides that he will fix this. He gathers the Dragon Balls and makes himself younger like King Piccolo did in the cast, which we didn't cover in this What If, because nothing before or during that point was changed. He then decides that not only will he upgrade the time chamber, but he'll do some training of his own. We'll get back to that some other time. Ignoring that, though, the group heads onto the Universe 67 tournament. I'll show you a ranking of the characters at the end of the video, if I remember. Comment if I forget. Anyway, the first round is Iris Heart versus Botamo. And, well, I would love to tell you about how this fight goes, but unfortunately, we have a sadist versus someone who can't take a lot, if any, harm. So, I won't go into any details for censorship purposes, but Botamo leaves with mostly emotional damage. Afterward, Iris goes after Frost. Frost, after seeing the last display, goes straight into his final form, third. Iris teases him and then begins to beat the shit out of him with her heels and whip, which would be allowed since she's technically materializing the weapon instead of bringing it onto the field. Eventually, Frost would turn into his actual final form, which only made the goddess lick her lips in return. Irisheart dodged Frost's death beams, and as if mocking him, fired some of her own, piercing both of his legs. Injuries don't matter as long as he wasn't dead, right? She was toying with him, making him work for his attack, which was an energy beam that grazed Irisheart's arm. After that, though, when Frost tried to rush her with that punch, the one with the poison needle, she kicks him in the jaw, the judo style, and then grabs his leg, slamming him out of the arena. Poor Frost. And then, of course, after Frost, we have Magetta, and, do I even need to talk about this one? Next is Irisheart versus Kaba. This one is quite easy for Iris to win as well, and for the most part, she's perfectly fine, if not a little worn out from the increased heat of Magneto. However, this means that Kaba doesn't turn into a Super Saiyan, as rather than being angry, he is more so disturbed and off guard. Kaba is actually a competent fighter, but unfortunately he just isn't anywhere near Irisheart's level. Remember that HDD is a Super Saiyan level boost. Afterwards, Irisheart fights against the man, the assassin. Irisheart scoffs. This whole tournament has been a breeze. She overtrained for this. I mean, she could have just stayed at home and been cozy in her snuggie, but no, she has to deal with this bullshit. However, in a matter of seconds, Irisheart grunts as she feels a massive amount of pain through her body. She growls and fires a few beams from her finger, but she doesn't see Hit move as he hits her in all of her pressure points. I mean, all of them. Between her tiring out over the tournament and Hit's raw power advantage, Irisheart quickly drops back down to Plutia very quickly, which, for some people, might be a good thing. Gohan quickly scoops up his aunt, and the siblings glare at it. It was a tournament, yeah, but to see their Auntie Plutie get knocked unconscious in less than a minute was aggravating to the half-breeds. After Plutia's defeat, Gohan stepped up. Gohan wasn't sure how to go about this, and he'll just try to test the waters in his base form to conserve energy. However, Goku quickly tells him that's not the best idea. This is our last fighter, and he beat Iris pretty quickly. Gohan nods and turns to a Super Saiyan 2. He's quickly overwhelmed in the first 30 seconds though, and tries to keep his distance with Ki Blast. This doesn't work either though. Gohan then powers up to a Super Saiyan 3, and although he's taking the hits better, he's still overwhelmed by what appears to be his raw speed. Doesn't understand. Jocko would then reveal that he's using a time skip. Yes, Jocko is in this situation, this scenario. I just never saw the point of bringing him up before. And Hit would also confirm that he can skip time. His beat-off is unskippable. Anyway, Gohan transforms to a Super Saiyan 4 after that. Now as a Super Saiyan 4, Gohan tells Hit to come at him. And so Hit does, hitting Gohan a number of times. This time, Gohan braced himself to take all the attacks, before landing a devastating blow to his body, followed by a flurry of lesser but much quicker attacks. He then tries to swing a hit at Hit's head, but Hit uses his time stop to dodge the hit and land another flurry of hits. How many times can I say hit in a single sentence? Gohan is stronger than Hit, but Hit attacks pressure points and was using time skip. Not to mention, between the damage he took from Super Saiyan 2 and 3, and tanking damage as Super Saiyan 4 to counteract Hit's time skip, Gohan eventually falls unconscious. The referee starts counting down. Then, Gohan wakes up, jumping and yelling, "I got you!" and gut punching Hit harder than he's ever been hit before. Gohan then fires a point-blank Kamehameha, which flies right past the Universe 6 stands, nearly hitting their God of Destruction. However, after the blast dissipates, Gohan receives a blow to the back of the neck. His blast had missed hit just barely. He jumps out of Super Saiyan 4 to his base form. Nice attempt, but fortunately just not good enough. Next is Vegeta, the third strongest on the team. I know what it is. Now, unlike the manga, Hit is injured, and Vegeta is not exhausted. And Vegeta knows Hit's technique. So, Vegeta turns to a Super Saiyan God rather than a Super Saiyan Blue. Now, I should note in my what ifs, I make Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan 4 have the same multiplier of 100 times Super Saiyan 3. However, Gohan was weakened by fighting in Super Saiyan 2 and 3 first. But not only that, Vegeta's base form is higher than Gohan's due to him training with Whis. Vegeta quickly defeats Hit with an explosive wave, which Hit can't dodge, and wins the tournament. It's the middle of the day on the Supreme Kai planet. Nappa and Raditz were training as per usual. However, all of a sudden, a visitor appeared. Zamasu. Kibito Kai and Supreme Kai were surprised. Zamasu wasn't one to visit other gods. Zamasu immediately noticed the Saiyans and questioned the two Kais. Why were there two mortals here? Supreme Kai explained that they helped save the universe from Majin Buu. It was reward for them. Zamasu glared and proceeded to talk to them with ease. Then, as soon as they turned their back, Kibito cries as he gets slashed down the center of his back. The Kais and Saiyans are shocked, but then the Saiyans get excited. Nappa transforms to a Super Saiyan 2 and sends the Kai flying. Zamasu makes a remark about how Nappa is a brute and couldn't beat Zamasu. And while Nappa is a lot stronger, Zamasu used his technique and small frame to counter and cut Nappa. But he's just too weak, and is sent flying. Nappa then raises his fingers and causes an explosion that would have killed the Kai. But it didn't. Raditz pushes Nappa aside and calls him soft before turning into a Super Saiyan 2. He throws a Saturday Crush at Zamasu, who doesn't try to move. Instead, he's unharmed. Everyone's confused and Raditz scoffs, transforming into a Super Saiyan 3. However, even in that form, he can't hurt Zamasu. Supreme Kai teleports himself and other Kai to Beerus' planet, where Whis and Beerus would quickly reappear with Goku and Vegeta. Beerus is pissed that someone would dare try to kill him, and begins to beat the shit out of Zamasu. Every time he tries to leave, he would be cut off by Beerus kicking his ass. This continues until Whis creates a seal and uses it against Elder Kai, and seals Zamasu away. Now, why did I very briefly go over the Zamasu arc in this case, and basically not include Goku Black? Well, without time travel, I don't think Zamasu would have wished for immortality, but I felt like it would have been more useful than stealing Vegeta's body, which he would have done in this situation, since Vegeta was the one he saw with God Ki. However, if he did that, he would have been attacked pretty damn quickly by Pishi, and then Vegeta would be revived. Either way, this arc is realistically not very interesting, and since this arc is absolute dog shit anyways, I don't think any of us care. So, it's a lot better in the manga, to be fair. Anyway, this moves on to the top. But SMDBZX, how does the Tournament of Power happen? No one became friends with Zeno. Well, we just never went over it. And for the sake of plot, Neptune had actually visited Zeno and suggested the idea. Because Neptune knows things. So, here's how we're doing this. I'm not going over every single fight. I will only be going over the major events briefly. And skipping the rest. Because there are 80 fighters in the Tournament of Power. You don't remember most of their names. I bet you struggle to remember anyone who isn't Jiren, Dispo, and Top. So, I don't see the reason to go over every single fight that would happen in said Tournament of Power. We also don't want to sit here for that long. And besides, we're following the manga continuity, and in the manga continuity, most of the participants get knocked out within the first few minutes. So, you know, it's very different from the anime, but Let's go over our team, shall we? Our first team member is obviously Pishi. She's the strongest person in this continuity. At this point, she's learned how to access her SDD form, Saiyan Drive Divinity, making her twice as strong as completed Super Saiyan Blue. I don't think I've ever specified this or not, but yes, when I refer to Super Saiyan Blue, I refer to completed Super Saiyan Blue because this is the manga continuity. Kaioken and kind of evolution don't exist in this continuity. Next is Goku and Vegeta, who would have completed Super Saiyan Blue. There's not much to say here. They're likely a little stronger than in canon, but not a noticeable amount. Then we have Neptune, Block, Noir, and Vert, who all have access to their next form. The transformation multiplier is equivalent to Super Saiyan Blue, or completed Super Saiyan Blue. However, their base forms are weaker than the Saiyans, which would, by proxy, make them weaker than completed Super Saiyan Blue users. After that, we have Gohan and Trunks. While they don't have much actual combat experience, with Cooler being their first, and by their first, I mean Gohan's first actual villain, they are far stronger than most of the people in their universe. Gohan being a Super Saiyan 4, and Trunks having his ultimate form. He was slacking off quite a bit, but after training in the Time Chamber upgraded by a now young Kami, he and Gohan got some last-minute training to throw off the rust, and get stronger, of course. That brings us to member number 10, our final member, which would be Plutia/Iris Heart. Unfortunately, she is by far the weakest on this team, because HDD is equivalent to Super Saiyan. Gohan and Trunks are relatively even as Super Saiyan 4/Ultimate, which is over 100 times stronger than Super Saiyan 3, and then everyone else is Super Saiyan Blue level or above. So, yeah, Iris Heart is by far the least valuable member of this team. However, she is far stronger than Piccolo. Rest in peace, Green Man. Maybe next What If. And technically, Raditz and Nappa are Super Saiyan 3, as Super Saiyan 3s, are stronger than Iris Heart, but they're ugly. And Raditz got a heart attack. I'm just kidding. But it's Dragon Ball Super X Neptunia, so I wanted to put the Neptunia characters in. I mean, you saw them fight Zamasu. Don't blame me, okay? Blame you know what? Blame the Discord server. Yeah. Blame the Discord server, which is in the comment section down below. You should, or description. So you should totally go into the description, join the server, and go tell off the server for not introducing Raditz and Nappa, your favorite characters, in the Tournament of Power. You should definitely do that. Anyway, enough of my rambles. Let's keep going. Starting off, the CPU would go off into one group, Trunks and Gohan into a group, Pishi and Plutia into a group, and then Goku and Vegeta are like, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. So, let's go over the most important matchups for every group. Our first fight that we are going to be covering is Pishi and Plutia versus Universe 2's Ribrianne Kakunsa. I don't know how to say her name. The hot cat lady, okay? That's who I'm talking about. The hot cat lady. And Rosie. They mentioned that, you know, Plutia and Pishi are really cute for an evil universe who threatened to get the rest erased. Plutia would rather they just didn't fight. I mean, she'd rather be going to take a nap right now. But Pishi, on the other hand, with no provocation, starts blasting. You know, she uses Vegeta's technique. It's mostly Pishi fighting, to be honest. I mean, Plutia is trying, but Plutia in her normal form is not much of a fighter. She can hit hard, but she's mostly just swinging around a plushie, or I don't know, a rock. I think the CPU can materialize weapons, so their weapons are allowed, but I don't know what Plutia would be doing in this situation. You just have to use your imagination. Eventually, the trio transforms, and in response, Pishi and Plutia use HDD. Been a while since you saw Pishi do that, huh? When's the last time we saw Yellow Heart? Like, episode 6 of DBZ X Snap? Anyway, the magical girls in HDD are on Super Saiyan level, give or take, and thus, even though Iris is actually helpful, they're on the back foot. Yellowheart gets pouty because her personality still changes and glows brightly, giving a shout as she powers up into her SDD form. Now in SDD, everyone is shocked aside from Universe 6. No one knew they could access God Key since the 7 vs 11 tournament is only in the anime. SDD Kishi then does some overdramatic moves and sends the three girls flying off the ring. And the two would then return to their normal forms and head off to fight elsewhere. Goku battles off against Universe 3. He starts having a hard time. It is literally the whole team targeting Goku. Goku turns to a Super Saiyan because he's being overwhelmed, but eventually Maji Kaio gets a hold of him. Goku was then forced to transform into a Super Saiyan 3. Remember, Goku also has a tail in this What If, so learning the transformation from Gohan, Raditz, Nappa, etc. wasn't very hard for him. I mean, he learned it just for shits and giggles. With Super Saiyan 3, he starts to foderize the Universe 3. Even the mightiest Kato Persa stood no chance. Eventually, they're forced to combine into the mighty Ami Laz. Unfortunately for him, though, this is the manga version where he's weak as hell. So Goku just quickly transforms into Super Saiyan Blue and takes him out of the arena with one kick, revealing that he too can use God Ki, and taking out Universe 3 all at once. As Gohan and Trunks take out a few fodder members of Universe 4, they are assisted by Universe 6's Kaba, followed by two females. Kaba confirms if Gohan is a Saiyan too, and Gohan tells him that both him and Trunks are half Saiyans, Gohan being a Saiyan CPU, and Trunks being a Saiyan human. Kaba would then comment that he was surprised Universe 7 had Saiyans and CPUs as well. What were they going to say next? They also have Namekians? Gohan would then be confused. What did he mean by CPU 2? Khalifa, though, quickly dismisses this question before he can get an answer, and asks if Trunks and Gohan are ready to fight. And of course, they accept. Now, there's technically a bit of a plot hole here of how he got Caulifla and Kale to join the Tournament of Power without Super Saiyan. But, I don't know. Let's just say he bribed them somehow. I don't know. At first, they're all pretty even, until Kaba tells them to stop holding back. Gohan and Trunks would then both turn into Super Saiyan, a form that technically Kaba has not seen, because he only saw 2, 3, 4. He didn't see the first level. And they begin to wipe the floor with those two. Kale would then interfere, because in the manga she's actually a super secret badass, but was actually quickly spin-kicked by Trunks and sent away. Even if Kale is a lot stronger in the manga, she has no chance against Trunks as a Super Saiyan. Unless Kale were to transform into her legendary form after both Kaba and Caulifla were knocked out of the tournament with Ki Blast. Trunks and Gohan are quickly overwhelmed by Kale's transformation, quickly getting thrown around and overpowered. Gohan transforms to a Super Saiyan 4, while Trunks turns to his ultimate form. It's then that the tables turn, as Kale isn't able to keep up with the power of both of them. Despite this, Kale still lets off an uncontrollable amount of power, even knocking out some of the other contestants in the process, though no one from Universe 7. Gohan and Trunks combine a Gallic Gun with the Kamehameha for engulfing and defeating the legendary Super Saiyan. So we don't get Kefla in this, but I didn't think it made sense for it to happen in this continuity. So, again, we'll move on. As Vegeta takes out even more Universe 4 fodder, Hit approaches him and wants to settle the score. Vegeta transforms to a Super Saiyan God and says that he's got stronger. As the two begin the fight, though, Hit stops time, hitting Vegeta multiple times. Oh god, we're going to be saying time and Hit a lot again, aren't we? Vegeta falls to a knee, and Hit explains that not only has he been getting stronger, he's learned how to fight better and improve his time skip to 1 second. Meaning that even though Vegeta is still stronger by a bit, he is unable to defeat Hit now. Vegeta would then laugh and explain that he never went all out in the last tournament, and transforms into his completed Super Saiyan Blue, revealing that there are 3 members in Tournament of Power of Universe 7 who can use God Ki.
As Vegeta transforms into Super Saiyan Blue, just like Pishi and Goku, his power draws the attention of the others. Before anyone can interfere, Hit and Vegeta begin their clash. With the power boost of 50 times or more, Vegeta is keeping up much better than before, and is in fact overwhelming Hit again. You see, here on this channel, we use something called the Goal Boost. I made a brief video where I explained the phenomenon, but basically, since Hit was only aware of Super Saiyan God Vegeta's power, and only the brief amount he was able to see since he can't sense God Ki, Hit is completely unprepared for this explosion of power. Vegeta lets out a strong right hook into Hit's gut through his time skip, and then releases a large Ki blast which knocks Hit out of the tournament. Although it's not like Vegeta came out of it unscathed, he turns back to his normal form and goes to take a breather. Meanwhile, our group of CPU are confronted by the Trio de Danger. It's 4-3-2, but as Noir is about to boast, Neptune up and disappears from the arena. Noir yells out, annoyed at Neptune, but whatever, it doesn't matter. The 6 of them start fighting. Vert fights Basil, Noir fights Lavender, and Bergamo fights Blanc, which in my opinion, that last one is probably the most accurate matchup. Meanwhile, Neptune jumps around some debris. Why is debris spelled with an S? That's spelled debris, but it's debris. It's debris. I don't like English. I'm gonna leave this in the video. Anyway, looking for a power level, she senses that something that catches her attention. She then receives a Ki blast, which Neptune hastily dodges into a backflip. To her attention comes 2 individuals our Neptunia fans should know fairly well: Uzume and Maho. The 2 girls are impressed Neptune dodged, and more impressed that there are 5 whole CPU in another universe. Neptune would correct them that there was technically 7, given that she had 2 kids, but how did the other CPU know that? How did they come to exist in the first place? The 2 girls would explain they're not quite sure how it all works, but they were born from the Dragon Balls on their planet. Neptune nods along and mentions that there must only be 2 of them because SMDBZX didn't want to fill the whole Universe 6 with either fake CPU or pretending CPU candidates who are acting as main CPUs. Because in actuality, they're the CPU candidates, but we'd have to do a lot of pretending, and I don't feel like doing that. Which was true, but fuck you, Neptune, for breaking the 4th wall. Meanwhile, with Noir, she's kicked back and bounces off a boulder, coughing as she notices her skin turning purple. She's confused on what's going on, and Lavender would laugh loudly, monologuing that he has poisonous breath and fist that will tear their opponent up from the inside out. If she doesn't get help soon, it'll be fatal. Noir grits her teeth and sits up, turning straight into her next form and proclaiming that she'll just have to beat the shit out of Lavender before that happens. Blanc goes HDD, however she's noticing the more she fights Bergamo, the stronger he seems to get. Whiteheart sneezes Bergamo hard, following up by a flurry of strong punches and kicks, and then summons her axe and slams it into him, sending him flying. The Universe 11 Kai would call that she should be disqualified. That was using weapons was against the rules. However, the CPU's weapons were made out of their own Ki, materializing it into physical objects, and thus it was not cheating in the same way that those with wings could fly. Speaking of which, HDD also gives them wings, in case you've forgotten. So, Whiteheart is able to dash forward with flight and continue to beat on Bergamo. However, the more she hits him, the bigger and stronger he would get, to the point where he sends Whiteheart flying into a boulder. Spits out some blood and wipes her lips, calling him a, and I quote, furry-ass motherfucking bastard, end quote, before using one of her only 2 ideas left. As Vert fights Basil, she feels everyone else stepping up, though Noir was dropping like a ball down a pair of stairs. Vert transitions into Greenheart, and Basil is quickly overwhelmed. It would seem that, aside from not only being able to sense Ki, Basil wasn't very special. Basil would then snicker and say that he actually was special, and he pulls out a small fruit and eats it. Suddenly, Basil's power skyrockets. Pierce would yell that this was a power-up item and that Universe 9 was cheating, but Zeno thought it was cool, so he allowed it. Now, this is an anime concept that didn't appear in the manga, but, you know, I thought it'd make things more interesting, so, you know, we're just gonna let it slide this time? Okay? Alright, cool. Greenheart was quickly overwhelmed, having to block a flurry of blows, quickly, and then sent flying back. Greenheart recovers mid-air by flying up. However, Basil simply kicks some large ki blasts at her. Greenheart puts up her block, tanking the attacks, before diving down and slicing with her spear. The weapon narrowly missed, and Basil kicked her in the spine, making her yell out in pain as she was sent flying into a boulder. Basil quickly jumped on top of another boulder, there's a lot of boulders in this episode, and laughed maniacally as he began winning. But then Greenheart powers explode as she turned into Next Green. It was at this moment he knew. He fucked up. Meanwhile, with Next Black, she's still beating the crap out of Lavender. As she does though, she feels more pain in her body and stops. Next Black falls to her hands and knees, coughing up blood and purple liquid. However, she's done so much damage to Lavender, he was out cold. Seeing her vision begin to fail, she gets up and grabs Lavender by the tail and drags him to the edge. Every step she feels her power dropping. Her legs are wobbly, her vision blurs more and more. Just as he reaches the edge, her power wears out. She turns back to Noir, falling. However, Noir lands just on the edge. Half of her body is hanging off, while the other half is still on. Vision begins to fade to black for a few moments. But then she weakly stands back up, getting just enough strength to drag both her and Lavender off the edge. However, as Lavender is dragged off with her, they're obviously both disqualified, meaning Noir is the first member of Universe 7 to be disqualified. But, considering the first member of Universe 7 lasted longer than like 50% of the tournament, things are still looking good. Whiteheart, seeing as the most powerful technique in Dragon Ball didn't work, transforms into Next White. And although his power is increasing dramatically, Bergamo cannot keep up with the strong blows Next White is hitting him with. Eventually she cups her hands and fires a point-blank Kamehameha to launch the wolf out of the arena, before turning back to normal. She sees a large flash in a nearby area, which was Next Purple, and heads that way. I feel like I should just say the same thing about Next Green, since Basil doesn't stand a chance, but why is Next Purple appearing? Well, let's talk about that. Well, after their lovely introductions, Neptune begins to fight the two Universe 6 CPU. They were both roughly even in power, so Neptune was having a hard time. She was even materializing for two swords, but that still wasn't giving her the edge. After blocking a double kick and backflipping away from the ki blast, Neptune activated HDD, transforming into Purple Heart. Purple Heart would then brag, saying that even if they worked together, they couldn't beat her like this. Uzume and Maho then activate HDD, turning themselves into Orange Heart and Gray's Sister. Now, this is kind of a plot hole, kind of not, because, you know, Gray's Sister is not a CPU, she's a CPU candidate, but CPU candidates kind of can't exist, since in this series, CPU do not rule nations, and so there wouldn't be a candidate, you know, for anything. But for the sake of the lore, we're going to be calling Gray's sister Gray Heart. And I'll just remind you, she reappears in the future. Good? Great. So Purple, Orange, and Gray Heart would start fighting in the sky. Purple Heart, however, would be overwhelmed very quickly. During the fight, she gets distracted by watching Blackheart get tackled off stage, but is punished for this by being sent flying back into the ground. When the other CPU land, Purple Heart stands up and smirks. Orange and Gray Heart say how Neptune is like so totally awesome, and that if she was in a gacha game, she'd totes be a UR. But then Purple Heart asks, what will you do about the next transformation? Pun intended. Before turning into Next Purple. As Next Purple appears, she quickly overwhelms the other two CPU. It's shortly after that where Blanc and Vert rejoin Next Purple. The two CPU grit their teeth and huff, as they would reveal their trump card. Next, Purple raises an eyebrow. Can they send the next as well? Because even if they could, Block Convert can do it as well. It will be a 3v2. But despite this, the Universe 6 CPU seem confident.
Orange and Grey Heart, which is Grey's sister in the canon Neptunian continuity, come together. They declare that they will use their secret weapon to defeat them. The CPU of our dimension are confused when the Universe 6 Saiyans pull out a secret weapon, the Batara earrings. However, our CPU don't know what those are. Remember, this story, fusion, has never been done before. As the two CPUs fuse together, the other CPUs are completely shocked as they were not expecting that to happen with earrings. This time, Beers would yell out that they were cheating, but the other thing thought it was cool, so they didn't give a shit. And here, I'm gonna break the fourth wall a little bit. Look, listen, I originally wrote this because I felt like Champa would still try the strategy. However, upon further thinking on this strategy still means Next Purple is kicking her ass. I really want to say it would be different and, dramatic and stuff, but in my what ifs, I do the best of A plus B times 100. Since HCD is equal to Super Saiyan, this would make it a 10,000 times boost. In comparison, Super Saiyan God is a 40,000 times boost in my what ifs, and Next is comparable to Completed Blue, so it's likely a 2 million multiplier at least. So, yeah, she's getting her ass kicked, despite powering up and doing a much better job. It's just not enough. As the battlefield begins to quiet down, a member of Universe 10 is knocked out of the ring by Toppo. Universe 7 groups back together and faces the majority of Universe 11. Toppo, Dispo, Jiren, and a few fodder members that you can't be bothered to remember. Neither can I. There's 15 minutes left. Goku and Vegeta turn into Super Saiyan Blue, going to fight Jiren. But Toppo cuts off Vegeta and tells him that he'd have to deal with him. Fine by Goku, he prefer 1v1s anyway. Gohan and Trunks are caught off guard by Dispo's speed. Yellow and Iris Heart fight off the fodder. And since the rest of the CPU just had a pretty hard fight against the Universe 10 members, or 12, whatever the Trio D Danger are from, I can't remember. They decided to sit back and take a break, relax, gather their breath a little bit. They just got done fighting, not to mention the Universe 6 CPU. However, Goku is quickly getting his shit rocked. Even though he's stronger than he is in canon, well, base to base at least, he takes note that he's never been hit this hard before and sent blind. The two fighters appeared after images. Goku would get some distance only for Jiren to immediately be in his tail, barely dodging strikes. Just the force of his blows alone made Goku shake. Goku would do a backflip to try to hit Jiren, and even though he missed, he got a little bit of distance. Although he barely had time to jump away onto some pillars as he threw some ki blast. Jiren didn't even register the attacks as he grabbed his foot and slammed him into the arena. Goku then powers up further and kicks Jiren off, but only a single second is given to him to breathe as Jiren re-engages in hand-to-hand combat. Vegeta is caught in shock by Jiren's raw power, and the fact Goku was on the back foot so easily. But Toppo makes him regret it by blasting him with an energy ball. Vegeta catches the attack and then throws it away, quickly getting into a scuffle. But it's caught by Toppo's speed despite his size. Vegeta thought he'd be a power-type fighter and was wrong. Vegeta would fire a Gallic gun to counter his Justice Beam, or whatever the attack's called. Vegeta would then give some prideful answer as Toppo asked why he's fighting in the tournament, and explain that Vegeta is the strongest in the multiverse. Toppo would then scoff and tell him that Jiren's the strongest mortal in all 12 universes, and since the yellow one is stronger than Vegeta, that would make him the third wheel. This would piss Vegeta off, and they would continue to fight. Yellowheart sees her dad getting her ass kicked, and she tries to go help him, but is cut off by the other Pride Troopers. She powers up into STD, her Saiyan Drive Divinity form, catching Jiren's attention momentarily, before she quickly knocks away all the other Pride Troopers in her way, and charges at Jiren, leaving Iris Heart alone to fight the majority of Universe 11. But the resting CPU would quickly activate their own HCD, and quickly help their friend. Pishi clashes with Jiren. Everyone nearby pauses as the strongest of the two universes go head-to-head. But although Jiren respects her strength and resolve to help her father, even her power isn't enough. Pishi does barely any better than Goku, And while Goku recovers from his ass kicking, though her ability to fly gives her the advantage in the air, it isn't enough. Pishi would power up and fire a full force Kamehameha, but Jiren would take the attack with a guard. Pishi huffs and puffs as the dust clears, but before the god-cladded CPU could celebrate, she felt a strong and painful punch to her gut. Jiren had moved at an unseeable speed, and no one saw him move until his fist connected. And then, the gut punch was so hard, she reverted back to her base form. He complimented Pish on the force of her attack, before picking her up by the hair and putting his hand in her stomach, and blasting her at point-blank range. Pishi yells in pain as she's sent flying through the arena, clothes being torn and skin cut, bruised, bloodied, going through various debris and whatnot as she tries to reflect the blast, but she simply just doesn't have the power, especially in her base form. As Pishi is sent towards the edge, Iris Heart flies in and tackles Pishi out of the way of the attack, just to knock Pishi out of said attack. But unfortunately, the position she was in, she wasn't able to block the attack properly herself, and is set off the edge with a massive explosion. Iris Heart can't fly up in time before she's wrung out officially, and is sent into the stands, where she reverts back to Plutia and passes out in pain and tiredness. But let's be honest, it's surprising Plutia didn't fall asleep already. Gohan watches in horror. He feels his rage building up, but the Dispo tells him he should pay attention to himself. Gohan's energy spikes. He powers up and lands a nasty combo, ending with Dispo flying into the air, and then fires a ×10 Kamehameha, and knocking him out of the arena. As Gohan calms down, Gohan and Trunks decide to split. Trunks would help his dad, while Gohan would help his own. And thus, the two split up to help said parent. Vegeta is matched by Toppo. Neither are gaining ground against one another. Out of nowhere, a Buster Cannon comes out and hits Toppo, blindsiding him. Vegeta takes this opportunity to land a strong uppercut, knocking him away with a kick. Trunks tells his dad he's here to help, but Vegeta tells him to stay out of it. Trunks would then tell Vegeta that they need to finish this guy off and help with Jiren, and, well, Trunks is right. Even Vegeta had to admit, Jiren was a strong son of a bitch. Vegeta gives in, and the father-son duo team up to fight. In the manga, Toppo can't use the God of Destruction form, and thus the father-son duo would win with the father-son Gallic Gun quite handedly, as the power gap would now be much larger. While all of that was going on, the CPU beat the rest of Universe 11, and was now in their next forms, jumping Jiren. Next, White hit Jiren as hard as she could, but Jiren would hit harder. Next, Green would use her amazing speed to get the surprise on Jiren, but Jiren was faster and hit her hard. Next, Purple would try her critical edge combo attack, but Jiren blocked the first strike and grabbed her by the leg, spinning her like a Beyblade before slamming her into an incoming Gohan. The group would all power up, Vert firing a Goddess Destructive Wave, a modification of Piccolo's Demon version, Blanc shooting Vegeta's Big Bang attack, an attack she picked up from him, and Neptune shooting a Kamehameha, while Gohan shoots a red ×10 Kamehameha. Although it was the weakest of the attacks due to the power difference between him and the CPU. Jiren tenses and powers up himself, blocking all of the Kia Blast at the same time. 3.5 CPU then charge at him again. Gohan gets backhanded hard enough to knock him unconscious. Green and White get their weapons blocked before Jiren does that one eye attack thing. You know, when he blinks at people and they just gets flying. Yeah, he does that to next Purple, sending her flying. Jiren would then knee White in the gut, grab her by the face, and slam her head into Green Hearts so hard that they cause a crater in the catching arena. Poor Vert, her skull must be hurting a lot. Vegeta charges in, telling him to fight. Vegeta would smirk as he manages to dodge a few of the punches that he saw from examining Jiren's attacks, and then land a punch to his abs. Trunks would jump over Vegeta and drop kick Jiren in the chin, before the two of them sent him flying back. Jiren would launch a flurry of punches so fast that Trunks couldn't even see them, and Vegeta had to block. Jiren did a double lariat, sending the two flying back. Vegeta bounces off some debris, while Trunks bounces off the ground until he's left barely hanging off the side of the arena. Trunks would crawl his way back up, but then immediately blasted off as Jiren called him trash. Vegeta's astonished, but then enraged. Meanwhile, Goku checks on Pishi and Gohan. Pishi's pretty beat up, but relatively okay. She's able to fight. Gohan is barely fluttering awake, but he manages to drag himself to his feet. Goku tells Gohan to take it easy. He's under a lot of stress. Gohan would try to object, but then Goku reaffirms, telling him to stand down. He's gotten a lot stronger in these last few years, but he's out of his league. This hurts Gohan to his core, but with 10 minutes left, maybe he could just outlast the timer. And yeah, to recap, in the span of the last 5 minutes, all but Jiren of Universe 11 have been knocked out of the arena, including Pluty and Trunks. Purple, White, and Green tried to attack Jiren again. He's actually caught off guard as they three performed perfect synergy. They trained together for a couple hundred, if not 1,000 years plus, after all. 3 CPU eventually get beaten away again as they slip up for just a split second. Jiren took that opportunity to beat them. White especially was getting on his nerves, so he hit her with a flurry of strong and fast blows. And although she's the most durable of the CPU, she's sent flying away with an uppercut so hard she goes unconscious and back to block. Goku jumps up and Super Saiyan Blue catches her before placing her down with Gohan. Once again, now in her normal form. Jiren's going to be out for the rest of the tournament. However, their concern is cut when Vegeta powers up.
Impossible to defeat you! Don't make me laugh! You claim I'm no threat to you. I assume that means you won't act like a coward and try to avoid this blast! Bring it. Final blast!
Vegeta's final flash was impressive. Everyone was shocked. It was the most powerful attack seen in the tournament so far. However, it wasn't enough, and Jiren manages to defeat her. Oh, he's not knocked out of the ring, simply knocked out of blue for a bit. As everyone fights the OP bald alien, Shin comes to a realization. And as the CPU and half Saiyans are prepared to get knocked out, there was a bright surprise. A very bright surprise.
Kakarot! How do you know this fusion will be enough to stop him?
I don't know for sure, but I know it's the best chance we have of saving the Earth!
Here, give it to me! What are you waiting for? Give it now!
You bet!
Come on! You said right here, right?
That's right, Vegeta.
All right, it's on!
Great! Thanks, Vegeta.
That's right, we have the introduction of Vegeta. Universe 6 could do it, why couldn't 7? And to say that Jiren is cooked is an understatement. This is manga Vegeta. In the manga, base Vegeta blasted Zamasu in half, who was beating Blue Goku and Vegeta nearly effortlessly. So, yeah, Jiren's fucked. No matter how much he powers up, he can't beat Super Vegeta. And if he can beat Super Vegeta, I really doubt he could beat Super Saiyan 2. But if by some miracle he could keep up with Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta, Vegeta could just turn Super Saiyan 3. Speaking of which, when they fuse together, there's only a minute left in the tournament. So, after a very brief struggle, Vegeta turns into Super Saiyan 3 and uses a final Kamehameha to knock the warrior out of the arena. And with that, he would also brag and be like, by the way, I was holding back and pissed cheering on. But after the very humble bragging, everyone would be wished back to existence, and tournament would come to an end. Although Vegeta would have to wait to unfuse. They could, you know, I guess they could spar with Pishi and Gohan. Until then, I don't know. They'd figure something out.